In the year 711, a powerful tide crossed the narrow strait that separated Africa from Europe. The Muslim Umayyad dynasty had long tested the edges of Iberia with raids and small expeditions, but now they were ready for something greater. Under the command of Tariq ibn Ziyad, their armies prepared to invade the lands known as Hispania. Across the waters from North Africa, Tariq led his men through what would one day be called Gibraltar. They landed upon Iberian soil, facing a kingdom already weakened by civil unrest and rivalry among its nobles. At this time, the Visigothic king Roderick held power over Hispania. Yet his throne was unstable and his rule challenged by internal dissent. When Tariq's forces advanced inland along the banks of the Wadi Laku River, Roderick gathered his army to confront them. The two sides met in a fierce battle that would decide the fate of the peninsula for centuries to come. Against all odds, the Visigoths were crushed. Roderick himself fell in battle, and the loss of their king shattered the resistance of the locals. Tariq's victory opened the gates to the heart of Iberia. Within a few years, the Umayyads swept through the peninsula, facing only scattered opposition. By 718, the conquest was complete. Hispania was now part of the Umayyad Caliphate, and its new rulers named it Al-Andalus, with Córdoba as the center of power. For decades, the new province flourished under Umayyad control, yet across the Islamic world, change was coming. In 750, the Abbasid revolution toppled the Umayyad dynasty in the east. One Umayyad prince, al-Rahman, survived the slaughter and fled across deserts and seas, until he reached Al-Andalus. In 756, al-Rahman declared that he would no longer recognize the authority of the Abbasids. Instead, he established his own realm, the emirate of Córdoba. It was a bold move, yet Rahman's charisma and skill won him loyalty among the local Muslims and converts. Without much opposition, he secured control over most of the peninsula, founding a new Umayyad dynasty that would endure for generations. The early years of the emirate were marked by consolidation. Power was centered in Córdoba, but its influence spread far beyond. The emirs ruled over a diverse land filled with Arabs, Berbers, Christians, and Jews, each contributing to the unique culture of Al-Andalus. For more than a century, peace largely prevailed, though beneath the surface rivalries simmered. By the time Abd-al-Rahman III came to power in 912, the emirate faced growing instability. Internal divisions weakened authority and threats from neighboring Christian kingdoms to the north, and rival Islamic caliphates in Africa and the Middle East added to the pressure. Yet Rahman was no ordinary ruler. Determined to restore unity, he embarked on a campaign of political reform and military conquest. Through both force and diplomacy, he brought nearly all of Al-Andalus under his control, even extending influence into North Africa. Still, Rahman understood that the legitimacy of his rule needed something greater. Surrounded by the Abbasid Caliphate in Baghdad and the Fatimid Caliphate in North Africa, he made a daring decision. In 929, he declared himself caliph, transforming the emirate of Córdoba into the Caliphate of Córdoba. It was not just a title change. It was a declaration of independence and a statement that Al-Andalus was equal to the great Islamic empires of the East. To proclaim oneself, caliph was an act of immense significance. In Islam, the caliph was considered the successor to the Prophet Muhammad, the guardian of the Muslim community. By taking that title, Rahman placed himself in direct rivalry with the Abbasids and the Fatimids, both of whom claimed the same right. But his people in Al-Andalus embraced him as their caliph, believing their connection to the Prophet's legacy gave them the stronger claim. This act united the peninsula under a renewed sense of purpose. Rahman's leadership ushered in a golden era for Al-Andalus. Trade routes flourished, science and learning advanced, and Córdoba became one of the most magnificent cities in the world. Its streets were illuminated by lamps, its libraries held hundreds of thousands of books, and its scholars studied astronomy, medicine, and philosophy with unmatched passion. Rahman also strengthened diplomatic ties beyond the Islamic world. He sent envoys to Christian kingdoms in Europe and established relations with the Byzantine Empire in Constantinople. His rule combined military might with intellectual brilliance, and under his governance, the Caliphate of Córdoba stood as a beacon of wealth, power, and culture. When Rahman died in 1961, his son Al-Hakam II succeeded him. The transition of power was smooth, a testament to the stability Rahman had built. Under Al-Hakam, the caliphate reached its zenith. The economy thrived as merchants traded goods from across Africa, Europe, and the Mediterranean. The city of Córdoba became a center of art and architecture. The great mosque expanded in splendor, and its courtyards echoed with the voices of scholars discussing mathematics and philosophy. Al-Hakam was deeply learned. Unlike his father, who spent much of his life in war and politics, Al-Hakam was a scholar at heart. He surrounded himself with intellectuals, poets, and scientists, turning Córdoba into the intellectual capital of the Western world. The Caliphate's administration ran so efficiently that he could delegate most political tasks to trusted advisors while he focused on collecting books and supporting education. During this time, Al-Andalus enjoyed one of the most peaceful and prosperous eras in its history. Its influence extended to North Africa, and its culture spread throughout Christian Europe, inspiring new ideas in science and philosophy. But as with all great powers, its golden age could not last. In 976, Al-Hakam II died, leaving behind a 10-year-old son named Hisham. It was a disastrous decision. The boy was far too young to rule, and though his father's advisor Almanzor pledged loyalty to him, the real power now rested in the hands of regents. Hisham's mother, Sub, and Almanzor controlled the state, but their partnership soon turned into rivalry. Almanzor, an ambitious and skilled statesman, became the true power behind the throne. He led the armies of Al-Andalus on campaigns into the Christian north, winning victories that brought him fame and fortune. Yet as his power grew, the authority of the young caliph faded. The once united caliphate became a shadow of what it had been ruled not by divine right, but by men hungry for control. To strengthen their position, Almanzor and Suba allowed large numbers of Berbers from North Africa to settle in Al-Andalus, hoping their loyalty would secure their rule. For a time it worked. The Berbers filled the ranks of the army, providing the manpower needed to maintain order. But this also sowed seeds of future division. The more influence they gained, the more resentment grew among the native Arabs and Andalusians. As years passed, corruption spread and unity began to fracture. Local governors started acting as independent rulers, and revolts became common. The brilliance of Córdoba dimmed as internal power struggles tore at the fabric of the state. After Almanzor's death, his son, Abd al-Rahman Sanchuelo, inherited his position, but his rule was short-lived. In 1009, a coup erupted in Córdoba, and Sanchuelo was assassinated. His death unleashed chaos across the peninsula. The Fitna of Al-Andalus, a brutal civil war, began. For more than 2 decades, factions fought for control. Various claimants to the caliphate emerged, each backed by different tribes and armies. The Hamidid dynasty from North Africa invaded during this turmoil, adding even greater confusion and bloodshed. Cities that had once been united now fought against each other. Under Hashim III, the last recognized caliph, the situation became desperate. His authority was weak, and the caliphate fractured into numerous competing regions. By 1031, the inevitable happened. The Caliphate of Córdoba collapsed completely. What remained of Al-Andalus splintered into small independent kingdoms known as the Taifas. Córdoba itself, once the capital of a mighty empire, was reduced to one of many struggling states. The fall of the caliphate was not sudden, but a slow disintegration. It began with political greed deepened with civil unrest and ended with the loss of unity. Where once the call to prayer echoed across a powerful and enlightened land, now it marked the boundaries of countless small realms, each claiming the glory that once belonged to all. The story of Córdoba is one of both triumph and tragedy. The rise of the emirate and its transformation into a caliphate had brought the Iberian Peninsula into an age of knowledge and prosperity unmatched in medieval Europe. Its architects raised buildings that still stand as masterpieces. Its scholars preserved and expanded the wisdom of the ancient world. Its rulers governed a land where Muslims, Christians, and Jews coexisted in relative peace, exchanging ideas and culture. But power is fragile. The same ambition that built the caliphate also tore it apart. The rulers who once united the peninsula began to trust their courts and armies more than their people. The spirit of learning and tolerance was replaced by suspicion and greed. In the end, Córdoba's fate became a reflection of the cycles of history. Great empires rise through unity, vision, and leadership. They fall through division, corruption, and neglect. The Caliphate of Córdoba was no different. It shone brightly, perhaps brighter than any other power of its time, but its brilliance could not last forever. Even after its fall, the legacy of Al-Andalus endured. The Taifas continued to preserve fragments of the old culture, and from them new dynasties would rise. The knowledge cultivated in Córdoba spread across Europe, fueling the intellectual revival that would one day become the Renaissance.